Welcome, everybody. 안녕하세요 to Sakura Pop, where your K-drama musing comes to life. I'm your host, Jackie, and I'm here to celebrate the final episodes of Vincenzo, the drama we all follow and love. Bonnie is not here today, to our collective disappointment, but I'm sure she's celebrating with us in spirit while also cringing because she's been telling me how graphic the last two episodes have become. To which I enthusiastically answered, but this is all part of the thrill and enjoyment. And with that comment, I probably come off as a bit of a psychopath, but I assure you all that I am only a normal girl who plays one too many games and watches one too many zombie shows and Game of Thrones. Now then, shall we kick off with our summary of episodes 19 to 20 of the Vincenzo finale? Vincenzo saves Miss So and Chayoung, but is saved himself by his team of tenants. They score a second victory as Babel loses their court case to demolish Gumga Plaza. Babel's public reputation goes down the drain, and Vincenzo does away with Mr. Zhang. No regrets there. Jung Hang-seo leaves jail and pulls a cheap villain trick and abducts both Cha-young and Hang-seo. Vincenzo fails to save everyone because Hang-seo dies, though not without a final present, allowing Vincenzo to track down the villains. In the meantime, Hang-seo continues to go nuts and has Hang Seung-hyuk, our chief prosecutor, assassinated in broad daylight. Vincenzo gives final judgments to Chae Myung-hee and Hang-sok in what must be the worst ways to die. He then leaves Korea as a wanted criminal. A year later, Vincenzo has established himself as the boss of the Kasano family, then returns to Korea as promised to Cha-young and seals it with a kiss. Mwah. There you have it, folks. Is that not the most satisfying ending devised in the history of K-dramas? The final revenge is realized, Babel is annihilated, Vincenzo, Chayoung, and their teammates get their well-deserved happy ending. I was nervous for 10 minutes though, because in the midst of all the fighting and the gunfights and the coming and goings, Mr. Lee got stabbed in quite a precarious spot in his protective duty covering Vincenzo. He had a punctured lung, blood was spewing out to the point where he left his unborn daughter in Vincenzo's care. So things did not look too good. Not good at all. My faith was shaken. But thanks to the white angel of Nutella, I was able to keep my promise to my co host Bonnie that no comedic character in a series gets killed off. I am sure if she's listening, she must be very pleased by this, that all of our tenants escaped these escapades without serious harm. And our white angel reveals his hidden skill as a surgical nurse. Not terribly imaginative and weirdly shoehorned in at the end, but aptly timed, and consequentially, he saved an enjoyable character. So that's all that matters. Folks, if you haven't already, please do go out and take a first aid course, preferably a full day one, because it teaches amazing life skills for treating all sorts of injuries, your stab wounds, lacerations, head trauma. You really never know when you may be able to save a life, like what Nutella did for Mr. Lee. That's my public service ad of the day. Sadly, we saved one person, but we lost one person, and that is Han So. He died most nobly, but I would have liked it if he had not died at all. I wonder if the show did that for dramatic effect, or is it trying to tell us something more profound? Compared to Hang Sok and Chim Yong Hee, Hanso had always been less of a threat, certainly more of a marionette throughout the machinations of the Babel Corporation. He was both fearful, he lacked the will and recklessness to kill people, and Wu Sang CEO was much the same. They were really never supposed to be in the business to murder, they just got caught up in it, so to speak. Now, listeners, think of those words for a moment. Just got caught up in it. Did they really? Can they be excused? I feel like the show is giving us a hard no on that. Despite the dramatic change Hang So undergone to become a protagonist, both he and the Woo-sang CEO did help Hang So for most of the series. They abetted his crimes and were complicit because if you don't stop somebody you're witnessing doing all these terrible, immoral things, then that almost makes you just as bad, doesn't it? And what if they joined hands with Vincenzo earlier on? Then innocent people wouldn't have died. Well, we wouldn't have a drama, but it still stands that they cannot be excused and redemption was long overdue. So even though it's easy to write off Han Solo's death as dramatic effect, I like to think that the show is saying that one's debt to society must be paid, and no past wrong would go unpunished. But because Han Solo corrected himself and aided Vincenzo a whole lot, he regained his sense of self. He finally got the brother he should have had and was at least allowed to die a hero's death. We sympathize for him and recognize his efforts. Good job, little puppy, and we will miss you. On the other hand, the top villains got exactly what they deserved. By the way, did anybody cringe at the torture mechanisms? If you thought being pushed off a building or suffocated and drowned was bad, they ain't nothing compared to Vincenzo's most creative means of dispatching his most hated enemies. I rather had some mixed feelings due to the sheer cruelty factor, but triumph and satisfaction won out in my mind. They actually won out fairly quickly. I had only a split second hesitation before being overwhelmed by the content and the satisfaction that the villains got their just desserts. This is Vincenzo's brand of justice at its finest. The ends justifying the means, so to speak. Listeners, you may have heard this phrase many a times, and I would like to uh, dive into that a little bit more of this theory. So, to expand on the theme of the show, which falls in line with a branch of philosophy called consequentialism. Big word, many syllables, and there is a big meaning to go along with it. Essentially, consequentialists hold in general that an act is right if and only if the act will produce or is intended to produce a greater balance of good over evil than any available alternative. This has been the running theme of the show. Vincenzo's consequentialism and his subsequent renegadeness is a more effective intervention than moral obligation of society or the rule of law. It's no use leaving such villains to the law because corruption is so rampant in his world, and they would surely not receive the punishment they deserve. So Vincenzo finished the job and he got what he felt was important, which were their apologies. I got goosebumps when Chae-myung and Hang-sok started begging for forgiveness, and they were begging for an easier death. They knew what was coming, and we certainly knew what was coming. Very unpleasant stuff. And that's exactly what was so extraordinarily satisfying and ironic too, to hear those apologies ignored, just like they themselves ignored the pleading of their own victims. As Vincenzo himself says, that which has no life has no sin. What do you think of that, ladies and gentlemen? Now on to the less heavier topics. For example, the gold. The gold, the gold, the gold, the goom. I was right, and that nets me 100 points as agreed upon from last episode. The monks, with help from other people in the know, moved the gold like I predicted and spotted. With some minor splits, Vincenzo keeps the rest, and we learn where each portion was hidden. And just like Bonnie said, it's great how the show reveals his hand quickly to keep the audience involved. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, I enjoyed that teamwork and the montage of everybody kind of slowly but surely and steadily stowing each piece of gold underneath their shirt, inside their purses, inside their knapsacks. Yeah, it was a romp. And after that, we get a happily ever after with a resolution for Vincenzo's vigilante ways. The monk tells him that he can remain true to himself and become like that of Vaisrana, a warrior deity in Buddhism who protects Buddha and the people. So, what have we learned? What can we conclude from the series? Vincenzo is the ultimate anti hero. So, because he is certainly not operating completely in the light and quite happily would yield himself to operating from the shadows and doing really sketchy things. But as a very good representation of the anti hero, he is consistent from start to end. Developing character progression in areas of compassion, yes, but he retains his base foundation to deliver, as he puts it, merciless justice. Mm, that rolls off the tongue. Merciless justice. The conclusion was nothing short of epic. The minor characters all added meaning and consequence, while the villains were menacing and unyielding. I hardly felt those 3 hours fly by, and I watched episodes 19 and 20 back to back. All the plot lines were compelling, and this show wasted no scene and held you by their cliffhangers. Remember, no less than 4 episodes in, I already dubbed it the drama of the year, and I stand by solidly behind that still. Bravo! So there you have it, folks. Thank you so much for following Sakura Pop and our weekly watching. I hope you enjoyed both the drama and my Vincenzo series podcasts. I'll be back with more entertainment for your listening pleasure. Tell me what you would like to hear. Email me at sakurapopcast@gmail.com. Have a fantastic week and keep musing about those K-dramas. Arrivederci!